Hello. Ready to read to you our next chapter of Esperanza Rising. Um, this guy probably wants to say hi. He just wants to say hello. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, he is a crazy nut, but we like him anyway. Okay, this guy also wants to say hello. Hi, hello, 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 hello. Okay, without further ado, here is the next chapter of Esperanza Rising. Las Ciruelas, the plums. You're okay. You'll be fine. As they walked to the bus stop, Isabel recited a list of concerns to Esperanza, sounding exactly as Josefina and Mama had sounded earlier that morning. Put Pepe down for a nap first, and when he falls asleep, put Lupe down. Otherwise, they will play and never go to sleep, and Lupe will not eat bananas. I know, said Esperanza, repositioning Pepe on her hip. Isabel handed her Lupe and climbed the steps of the yellow bus. She found a seat and waved from the window. Esperanza wondered who was more worried, she or Isabel. Esperanza struggled to carry both babies back to the cabin. Thank goodness Isabel had already helped her feed and dress them. She settled them on a blanket on the floor with some tin cups and wood blocks, and then put the beans into a big pot on the stove. Hortensia had prepared them earlier with a big onion and a few cloves of garlic, and instructed Esperanza to stir them occasionally and let them cook on low heat, adding more water throughout the day. Adding more water throughout the day. She stirred the beans and watched Lupe and Pepe play. I wish Abuelita could see me, she thought. She would be proud. Later, Esperanza looked for something to feed the babies for lunch. A bowl of ripe plums sat on the table. They should be soft enough to eat, she thought. She took several, removed the pit, and mashed them with a fork. Both babies loved them, reaching for more after each spoonful. Esperanza mashed another 3 plums, and they gobbled every bite. She let them have their fill until they started fussing and reaching for their bottles of milk. Enough of lunch, said Esperanza. What do you think is going to happen if you feed a baby plums? I'm thinking back to when I was babysitting my niece when she was really, really tiny, and my sister left about 3/4 full bottle in the fridge of prune juice. Prunes are plums that have dried up, and kind of like raisins or grapes. So prunes are like plums that have been dried, and they're dry and wrinkly, dried out and wrinkly. And about 10 minutes after my niece drank the bottle full of prune juice, she just exploded. It was the messiest diaper I've ever seen. It was leaking out of the diaper. It was everywhere. Oh my gosh. I still can just vividly picture it and imagine it, and it was terrible. So if she's feeding them plums, they're going to be really sick, especially if they ate a lot of them. Enough of lunch, said Esperanza, cleaning their faces and gratefully thinking that it would soon be nap time. She slowly changed their wet diapers, remembering all of Josefina and Isabel's instructions. She put Pepe down first with his bottle as directed, and when he fell asleep she put Lupe next to him. Esperanza lay down too, wondering why she was so tired, and she dozed. She woke up to Lupe's whimpering and an atrocious smell. Brown liquid leaked from her diaper. Esperanza picked her up and carried her out of the room so she wouldn't wake Pepe. She changed her into a dry diaper and rolled the soiled one into a ball and put it by the door until she could take it to the toilets. When she put Lupe back down, Pepe was sitting up in bed in the same condition. She repeated the diaper changing. With both babies clean, she left them in the bed and dashed to the toilets to rinse the diapers. Then she ran back to the cabin. A different smell greeted her. The beans. She had forgotten to add more water. When she checked the pot, they appeared to be scorched only on the bottom, so she poured in water and stirred them. The babies cried and never went back to sleep. Both dirtied their diapers again. The wadded pile by the door grew. They must be ill, worried Esperanza. Did they have the flu, or was it something they ate? No one else had been sick recently. What had they eaten today? Only their milk and the plums. The plums, she groaned. They must have been too hard on their stomachs. What did Hortensia give her when she was a child and was sick? She tried to remember. Rice water, but how did she make it? Esperanza put a pot on the stove and added a cup of rice. She wasn't sure how much water to add, but she remembered then that rice didn't come out soft. That when rice didn't come out soft, Hortensia always said it needed more water. So she added plenty and boiled the rice. Then she poured off the water and let it cool. She sat on the floor with the babies and fed them teaspoons of rice water all afternoon, counting the minutes until Isabel walked through the door. "What happened?" said Isabel when she arrived and saw the pile of diapers by the door. "They were sick from the plums," said Esperanza, nodding toward the plate still on the table where she had mashed them. "Oh, Esperanza, they are too young for raw plums. Everyone knows that plums must be cooked for babies," said Isabel. "Well, I am not everyone," yelled Esperanza. She dropped her head and put her hands over her face. Pepe crawled into her lap, making happy gurgling noises. She looked at Isabel, already sorry for screaming at her. "I didn't mean to yell. It was a long day. I gave them some rice water and they seem to be fine now." Sounding surprised, Isabel said, "That was exactly the right thing to do." Esperanza nodded and let out a long sigh of relief. That night, no one mentioned the number of rinsed and wrung out diapers in the wash tub outside the door, or the beans that were obviously burnt to the pan of rice in the sink. And no one questioned Esperanza when she said that she was exhausted and wanted to go to bed early. Let's see. The grapes had to be finished before the first fall rains and had to be picked rapido quickly. So now there were no Saturdays or Sundays in the week, just work days. The temperature was still over 90 each day. So as soon as Isabel's bus left for school, Esperanza took the babies back to the cabin. She fixed their bottles of milk and let them play while they made their beds. Then she followed Hortensia's instructions for starting dinner before turning to the laundry. She was amazed at the hot, dry air. Often, by the time she had filled the clotheslines that were strung between the trees, she had only minutes to rest before the valley sun dried the clothes crisp and they were ready to fold. Irene and Melina came over after lunch, and Esperanza spread a blanket in the shade. Esperanza liked Melina's company. In some ways, she was a young girl, especially or sometimes playing with Isabel and Sylvia, or telling Esperanza gossip as if they were school friends. In other ways, she was grown up, with a nursing baby and a husband, and preferring to crochet with the older women in the evenings. "Do you crochet?" Melina asked. "I know a little, but only a few stitches," said Esperanza, remembering Abuelita's blanket of zigzag rows that she had been too preoccupied to unpack. Melina laid her sleeping baby girl on the blanket and picked up her needlework. Irene cut apart a 50-pound flour sack that was printed with tiny flowers to use as fabric for dresses. Esperanza tickled Pepe and Lupe, and they laughed. "They adore you," said Melina. "They cried yesterday when I watched them for the few minutes it took you to sweep the platform." It was true. Both babies smiled when Esperanza walked into the room, always reaching for her, especially Pepe. Lupe was good-natured and less demanding, but Esperanza learned to watch her closely, as she often tried to wander away. If she turned her back for a minute, Esperanza found herself frantically searching for Lupe. Esperanza rubbed Lupe's and Pepe's backs, hoping that they would go to sleep soon, but they were restless and wouldn't settle even though they had their bottles. The afternoon sky looked peculiar, tinged with yellow, and there was much static in the air, and the baby's soft hair stuck out. "Today is the day of the strike," said Melina. "I heard that they were going to walk out this morning." "Everyone was talking about it last night at the table," said Esperanza. Alfonso said he is glad that everyone from our camp agreed to continue working. He is proud that we won't strike. Irene continued working on the flour sack and shaking her head. So many Mexicans have the revolution still in their blood. I am sympathetic to those who are striking, and I am sympathetic to those of us who want to keep working. We all want the same things, to eat and feed our children. Esperanza nodded. She had decided that if she and Mama were to get Abuelita here, they could not afford to strike. Not now. Not when they so desperately needed money and a roof over their heads. She worried about what many were saying. If they didn't work, the people from Oklahoma would happily take their jobs. Then what would they do? A sudden blast of hot wind took the flour sack from Irene's hand and carried it to the fields. The babies sat up frightened. Another hot blast hit them, but kept on, and when the edges of the blanket blew up, Lupe reached for Esperanza, whining. Irene stood up and pointed to the east. The sky was darkening with amber clouds, and several brown tumbleweeds bounced toward them. A royal of brown loomed over the mountains. Una tormenta de polvo, dust storms, said Irene. Hurry! They picked up the babies and ran inside. Irene closed the door and began shutting the windows. What's happening? Asked Esperanza. A dust storm like nothing you've ever seen before, said Melina. They are awful. What about Mama and Hortensia and the others? Alfonso and Miguel, they are in the fields. They will send trucks for them, said Irene. Esperanza looked out the window. Thousands of acres of tilled soil were becoming food for La Tormenta, and the sky was turning into a brown, swirling fog. Already she could not see the trees just a few yards away. Then the sound began, softly at first like a gentle rain, then harder as the wind blasted the tiny grains of sand against the windows and metal roofs. The dirt showered against the cabin, pitting everything in its path. Get away from the window, warned Irene. The dirt and wind can break the glass. The finer dust seeped inside, and they tried to seal the door by stuffing rags under it. Esperanza could not stop thinking about the others. Isabel was at school. The teachers could take care of her. But Mama, Hortensia, and Josefina were in the open shed. She hoped the trucks would bring them soon, and the fields. She could only imagine. Alfonso and Juan and Miguel, could they breathe? Irene, Melina, and Esperanza sat on the mattress in the front room trying to calm the babies. There was no relief from the heat in the closed room, and soon the air was hazy. Irene dampened some towels so that they could wipe the babies and their own faces. When they talked to one another, they only tasted earth. How long does it last? Asked Esperanza. Sometimes hours, said Irene. The wind will stop first, and then the dust. Esperanza heard a meowing from the door. She ran to it and, pushing hard against the wind, opened it a crack. Isabel's kitten, Chiquita, darted in. There was no trace of her orange fur. The cat was powdered brown. The babies finally fell asleep, drowsy from the heavy air. Irene was right. The wind stopped, but the dust still swirled, as if propelled by its own power. Irene and Melina left with Melina's baby, covered beneath a blanket, and rushed to their cabin. Esperanza waited nervously, pacing in the room and worrying about the others. The school bus came first. Isabel burst in the cabin crying, Mi gata, Chiquita! Esperanza hugged her. She is fine, but very dirty, and hiding under the bed. Are you all right? Yes, said Isabel. We got to sit in the cafeteria all afternoon and play games with erasers on our heads, but I was worried about Chiquita. We will stop right there. Hope you had a good day today and that you're feeling good. And I see that more of you have found Google Classroom, which is good because next week we're going to start looking at information for your famous Californian reports. So I'm glad that you're finding your way over to Google Classroom and you know how to get on there. If you know of anybody that's having any problems, please let me know. Just send me an email and we can figure out how to help anybody get on there that isn't on there yet. Anyway, I hope things are going well with your work too and that your mission reports are coming along Tonight I'm going to be editing a whole bunch of them. I was trying to edit some of them at my dad's house today, and his Wi Fi was not working real well either. I think what's happening is everybody everywhere is using their Wi Fi all at the same time, and it's kind of slowing things down. So, anyhow, I'll get on editing those so you can get them back and know how well you did and get them fixed up. And I will talk to you later. Bye.